Let me call the regular scheduled Board of Aldermen meeting to order, and I'll open and ask Alderman Hamilton for a word of prayer, if everybody would stand, and I'll lead the pledge of allegiance afterwards.
Please join me in prayer. Dear Father in heaven, we come to meet tonight, and we thank you, first of all, for the beautiful day that we've enjoyed. Dear Lord, we thank you for the many ways that you bless us. And dear God, as we come to you tonight, we lift up to you verse of scripture where it says that there will be wars and rumors of wars. And dear Lord, we just pray tonight for the people that are so involved in the war going on. Lord, we see and hear in the news such negative things, and we just pray for those that are in harm's way and those that have been involved. We ask you tonight, dear Lord, to bless this meeting, bless our Mayor Pro Tem Collins that will lead the meeting, and guide us with each decision we make. This we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Aldridge. Here. Collins. Dickerson.
Here.
Earhart.
Here.
Hamilton.
Here.
Henderson. Here. Wallace.
Here.
Quorum's been established. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I need to recognize a person. Is Linda Grant here? Hey, Linda. Would you come forward? Linda has been involved. I'm gonna go around there, but Linda's been involved with Farmers Market for at least 20 years and 8 years with Olive Branch, having to get started, and been the manager of it 4 years. And so we just wanted to honor her for her. She's gonna retire from doing it, and we want to honor her. And if you'll come forward, we have a certificate of recognition we'll give you. Work with us years. Thank you. All right, I'm gonna go on. All right, we have, is Denise Novak here? Yeah. Come up, Denise. We're gonna recognize Denise for going above and beyond in the role of supporting animals. Denise has exemplified her service as a volunteer for placing long-standing tenants of the Olive Branch Animal Shelter into area rescue groups. Thank you, Denise, for being a friend of the animal shelter and helping so many animals find homes within our community. Thank you.
Thank you, neighbor.
I think that was just for FYI.
All right. The next thing is on the agenda is approval of the minutes, which the minutes have been mailed out to everybody, or everybody got them over the weekend. If there's any questions on the minutes, if not, is there a motion to approve the minutes? Alderman Wallace makes a motion to approve. Second by Alderman Henderson. Any question? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We're moving on to Planning Commission. Oh,
Consent.
oh yeah, okay, consent agenda. Excuse me. Yeah, next thing on the agenda is consent agenda. Is there any question about the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Alderman Hamilton to approve the consent agenda. Second by Alderman Aldridge. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. All right, now, Planning Commission, old business. Public hearing set for this date, application project tech development plan for Robinson Crossing Center Plan Commercial Development submitted by Stephen Steinbach. I'll let-
Thank you, sir. Before you is a request to consider the project text and preliminary development plan for the Robinson Crossing Commercial Center. The piece of property under consideration is located east of Pleasant Hill Road, south of Lytham Drive, north of Church Road East, and just west of Sandwich Road. So it's this area indicated here in red. This is a subject property that is under consideration. Margaret Manor subdivision is across the road to the south. The property is currently vacant. It is zone C4 planned commercial district, and the approval of any development in the C4 zoning district requires the submission of a project text and a preliminary development plan that has to be reviewed by the Planning Commission and approved by the Board of Aldermen before any development can move forward on that piece of property. A historical overview of this particular site. In 2006, this piece of property was entitled from a zoning perspective as part of the Margaret Manor planned unit development. That was approved in 2006 as a C4 district. In 2019, the property owner requested and the board approved the extrication of this particular site from the Margaret Manor PUD and then rezoned it to C4. A stipulation in the board order when that was done was that any development on this site will require two things. First, the submission of a preliminary development plan and a project text for approval. And secondly, the property owner was prohibited from subdividing the property in bits and not going through a comprehensive planning of the particular site. That is the reason this application is back before the board today. The immediate use that is contemplated on this side is a convenience store with C-store, but then the applicant has to plan the entire property. To the north is generally residential, and that particular area had been removed from the Margaret Manor subdivision. It's generally residential to the north. To the south is the Margaret Manor subdivision, as I did indicate. To the west of this particular site is generally farmland. If you go further to the west, is being developed as a neighborhood at Bell Point, PUD. And its plan is very similar to that of Margaret Manor subdivision to the south. To the west, that is where we have the landfill and electrical. To the east, sorry, we have the landfill, the electrical substation, and a self-storage facility. So the eastern area across Sandwich Road is more of light industrial, one can say. While to the north is more agriculture, to the south is residential, to the east, to the west is both residential with potential for commercial development based on the approved plans for neighborhood at Bear Point PUD. This is important in considering how the applicant proposes the different areas and the different land uses on this particular site. The preliminary development plan as proposed to be developed in phases generally has 4 main areas. Area 1 at the intersection of Pleasant Hill Road and Church Road to the south. That is proposed to be developed in phase 1 with a C-store with gas pumps to the south and another potential commercial building to the north. That is area 1. Area 2 are proposed almost like out parcels along a Church Road. There are about 5 or 6 of those out parcels that are proposed along Church Road. Area 3 lies in between the out parcels along Church Road, shown here in red, and the area immediately south of Latham Drive. That is envisioned to be developed in phase 3 of this particular project. And then area 4 will be to the north, that can be developed in phase 3, both phase 2 and phase 3 of this particular site. This provides the land uses as proposed. So, as I did indicate, at the intersection of Pleasant Hill Road and Church Road, what you have there, principally phase 1, is a gas station and an out parcel. Along Church Road, you would generally have highway commercial uses like the sort you have on Goodman Road. So if you just think of Goodman Road, those are the kind of uses that are proposed in that particular area. The area further to the north, which is indicated here as a business intensive and shopping center, that is more for uses like a Walmart, Target. Those are the kind of uses that are proposed to be in that center. And then further to the north, where you have general commercial or low intensity light industrial uses, those are things like auto repair shops. Those are the kind of uses that are proposed to the north. And they are proposed there with sensitivity to the presence of the landfill, as opposed to, and the mini warehouses, as opposed to the commercial uses like restaurants and retail that you have to the south. Those restaurant, retail, and office buildings to the south are also included or stipulated in the project text with sensitivity to the presence of residential development to the south. You would not have uses like auto repair in that highway commercial out parcels area. The zoning ordinance provides 4 main criteria for reviewing project text and preliminary development plans in the C4 zoning district. The first has to do with the character of the area, the second, traffic, the third, utilities, availability and sufficiency, and the fourth, other matters pertaining to public health, safety, and general welfare. With respect to general compatibility in the area, the uses, as I did indicate, have been proposed with sensitivity to the surrounding uses. To the north, where you have area 4, those are generally commercial, intensive, light industrial because of the landfill area that we have to the east. Area 3, that is a very large area that can be planned out more specifically when we have site plans at our disposal for review. And that would be a commercial intensive area having things like, that could have things like a Target, a Walmart or so. And then area 2 along a Church Road, those are generally out parcels. They're proposed for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the preliminary plan that's laid out. Generally out parcels like you have on Goodman Road. And then area 1, that is for phase 1, that's what a potential developer intends to go in there and put a gas station at that intersection. Across the street, of course, there is, I think that's another shared gas station across the street. Buildings are restricted to 3 stories, maximum 35 feet in height, all over this 92 acres piece of property. In terms of architecture, all buildings are required to have minimum 75% brick and to be in compliance with the stipulations of the design review ordinance of the city. Signage on the entire 92 acres, maximum 12 feet in height, must be monument style. In terms of traffic, ingress and egress on Church Road. 5 ingress and egress points are proposed on Church Road. The gas station at this particular location will share a point of ingress that is aligned with the driveway across the street, going to the other gas station that you have across the street. Most of these driveways here are intended to be shared with cross-access easements, all indicated running east-west and north-south on this particular site. For developments that may adjoin Sandwich Road and let Sandwich Road to the east and Latham Drive to the north, there is a stipulation in the project text that any development proposed there, the city engineer will have to review and determine whether a traffic study is required. If one is required, the applicant will have to do a traffic study, and based on that traffic study, the city engineer may require the expansion of those streets or the provision of deceleration lanes as may be necessary. With respect to Pleasant Hill Road, that is very specific because, as the board may know, this is the current design for Pleasant Hill Road, preliminary plan for the expansion of Pleasant Hill Road to provide medians. This is a specific design on Pleasant Hill Road as currently in the preliminary design. The city engineer did provide this to the applicant to overlay this on the plans and ensure that whatever they are proposing is going to work. That is why we have this design of Pleasant Hill Road. So you will have a median based on, and Andy can throw more light on this once I finish with my presentation. You have restricted access points, right in, right out only because of those medians. And there is language in this project text with respect to the dedication of additional right-of-way to provide for the expansion of Pleasant Hill Road. That language states, and I want to emphasize on this, quoting directly, it says, dedication of right-of-way and identification of any frontage improvements to Church Road, Pleasant Hill, Latham or Sandwich roads, such as widening, installation of deceleration lanes, and installation of curb, girder, and sidewalks shall be addressed and required through the City of Olive Branch subdivision approval procedures. What this basically means is to do any development on this side, of course, the next stage will be for the applicant to provide a preliminary subdivision plat that will actually create individual lots. At that time, the board will have the powers and discretion to make any specific requirements with respect to right-of-way dedication and improvements of those streets. Concerning utilities, water is available on, there is a 6-inch and 12-inch water line available on Pleasant Hill Road, which the applicant can extend to, the future developer can extend to service any development within the property. There is also sewer, 8-inch sewer line cutting through this particular site, and it would be the responsibility of any future developer to make any upgrades to those infrastructure as may be necessary to develop the property. In terms of any other matters pertaining to the public health, safety, and general welfare, 2 regional detention stormwater areas are proposed, one to the north, labeled here as common open space COS1, and another to the south to contain stormwater development on that particular site. Over 20% of the site will be set aside as open space. That's over 17.03 acres of this total 94 acres piece of property. None of the uses is foreseen that will pose potential hazard to the city. In terms of next step, as I did indicate, the applicant will have to provide a preliminary plat for review which can come in phases based on the phasing plan for review by the Planning Commission, recommendation and approval by the Board of Aldermen. Once the preliminary plat is approved, the applicant will have to, or a potential developer will have to submit construction plans, which will be reviewed and approved administratively by staff, and then a final plat will have to come before the Planning Commission and then the Board of Aldermen for approval. The Planning Commission did review this application at its meeting on September 12th and recommended approval by the vote of 4-1, subject to 3 conditions. The first being that all improvements will be the responsibility of the developer, not of the City of Olive Branch. And preliminary plats shall include cross-sections for the widening of the roads, especially those on which any lot front, such as Pleasant Hill Road, as I did indicate. Such sections shall be recommended by the city engineer. Lastly, the final plat must be approved by the City of Olive Branch and recorded before building permits may be issued for development on any of the sites. This is a standard provision in the subdivision regulations. Thank you. That concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you. Is there any question from the board, from planning right now?
I just got a quick question. There's a natural creek that runs, is it this section or is it the section behind it? I didn't notice it on this map, but I was curious.
The blue line, this, is a pointer shown on the
I
screen?
can see it.
There is that dotted blue line extending from north to south. That is the creek. That's the location of the creek.
Okay.
And the applicant, in order for to have with the dedication of additional right-of-way on Pleasant Hill Road, that kind of pushes the property line further into this side. To provide sufficient area for what is proposed to be a gas station at that location, the applicant will have to, or the developer will have to relocate that ditch. Basically move the creek further to the east as indicated on this particular diagram.
Okay.
You're welcome, sir.
Hamilton?
Okay, I wanted to would like to just clarify something with Mr. Swims. If the property starts to be developed now, we're not ready for the Pleasant Hill Road, so is it my understanding that he will just dedicate what he needs to dedicate now, and then any improvements will be made once we get the project going to widen that road?
I think that's my understanding too. So it's going to all depend on what gets there first, but it looks like that this phase 1 or area 1 is going to be there. That would be requiring for right-of-way dedication. And then if it develops ahead of this development of Pleasant Hill Road, the dedication would be there. Otherwise, we'd be handling that as part of the road project.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, I did have one, and this may direct back to Mr. Swims. Because it's preliminary, we might be able to address this in a traffic study, but the retail or business outlets that are facing Church Road, I don't have the measurements, but I'm a little concerned with that many ingress and egresses coming in. Would that not cause a traffic headache with a lot of left turns from both sides of Church Road?
Well, we do try to limit the number of access that we have, but I'm not sure exactly what the total length of it is down through there, but we've spaced it out similar to what we have on the other side of Church Road. I'm trying to I guess, keep a middle ground, I guess, with what the developer wants for access and not having too many accesses. So I think that they were actually requesting more than this when we started, and we've cut this back to the number that's shown on there currently. Certainly, to reduce the number of access points is going to be better for traffic. You're going to have less traffic trying to pull out and make left turns, but we've tried to line them up with what we have across the street to try to reduce the impact.
Because I was just curious on each side of that common area space detention pond, if we could have more parallel ingress, or not ingress, egress, but parallel driveways in the business section, have one ingress, egress section coming in and out of that, if that makes sense.
At the
Rather
center
than
point,
two. maybe just take I know this is preliminary, but maybe take a peek at that for us.
You're talking about trying to eliminate or trying to reduce the two driveways on either side of the detention down to one?
That, or take the middle one out on area 2, which is 14.31 acres.
Right.
Maybe have one closer toward the convenience store or the detention pond. And then on area 2 with no acreage listed right there where the red dot is currently, again, that one to the easternmost boundary. Because you can access the commercial buildings, obviously, once you enter into that driveway.
Right.
And you just don't have as many access points in and out. Particularly as the south side of Church Road develops. I guess I'm just trying to keep from having something like we have on Camp Creek right now that we're having to address again, Camp
Right.
Creek Boulevard.
I agree. So we'll be looking at that closer and trying to evaluate it and make sure we're not gonna be creating any more traffic hazards than what we think that needs to be in this area to serve these, commercial businesses. So,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And I think this can also be addressed at the preliminary plat. Area 1, for the applicant to be able, or potential developer in future to develop area 2, they will have to submit a preliminary plat that actually creates all those lots. And at that time, the board will have the powers to specify how many driveways you want to see right there.
Okay.
Hey, I'd like to make a comment too, Gil. This, and I'm not speaking for it or against it, but it's a half mile here. And it is, Camp Creek is terrible. But this is a 5-lane road with the turning lane where Camp Creek was.
Yeah.
And so it may be a
we may have
concern.
room.
Yeah, it may be a concern, but it probably not a concern. I think, what do you, I think that's what you were saying. And, you know.
well, yes, it's a 5-lane section that's on Church Road. When you turn on Pleasant Hill Road, that's gonna have medians. And I think what Hassan was showing y'all was the plan had already been designed so that the only full access that you have on Pleasant Hill Road is when you get up to Latham Drive. The other drives are either right in, right out, which is the one that's closest to the convenience store. And then as you move up, they have another drive that's a limited access. Doesn't allow you to come across and make left-hand turns, but you can come from the north and turn in, and you can make U-turns at it. But
Now, yeah, again, I'm asking for Alderman Hamilton, so I'll understand it. This road's gonna be a divided medium, right? Pleasant Hill Road, I'm
Yes,
talking about.
they're for the most part, but
For the
in
most
this
part,
area,
I'm
it
talking
is
about.
medians.
And I
divided
think for this length of this,
Yes, sir.
are they gonna have to do the improvements, or are they just gonna dedicate the right-of-way? And that's what you were asking. And I thought they were gonna dedicate the right-of-way, cause I thought the other money was coming out of the MPO.
We're looking for them to dedicate the right-of-way, and this is gonna be a part of the project, but the improvements will be a part of the project is the way that we proceeded up to this point.
Okay, all right, I don't know. And I don't know if I'm trying to help answer some of the questions. And again, so you said we would address it in the final anyway, right?
Yes, sir. Just give me a second. Because the language that addresses the question which other woman Hamilton is asking, it's provided right here as I did mention.
Mm-hmm.
So the developer will dedicate the right of way. The full dedication, the effective dedication takes place at final plat. But of course, that right of way will also have to be shown on the preliminary plat. Precisely how wide it's going to be, the exact location will have to be shown on the preliminary plat when it's brought in front of you. At the approval of the preliminary plat, the board will make a final decision as to whether any improvements will be required of the developer on Pleasant Hill Road or not. So what is being established today is that the applicant would dedicate right-of-way. With respect to the improvements within that right-of-way, that decision will be made at the preliminary plat approval stage, because it's actually in the preliminary plat that we address issues of infrastructure improvements. for
Okay.
development of any subdivision.
Okay. Any other questions? The applicant have something they'd like to add? Yeah, or,
Just very briefly, yes, this has been a long process. My name is Brett Morgan with Urban Insights. I'm not Steve Stein, Bach, I'm his partner. He couldn't be here tonight. But this has been a long process. We've gotten it down to a few conditions that the Planning Commission has given us. We're in agreement with all of those conditions and are ready to move forward. Appreciate it.
okay. Any
Happy to answer any
questions
questions.
from the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
It's a public hearing. So we ask them to put it for
Okay.
public hearing.
This is a public hearing. Is it anybody else would like to speak in favor of the application? All right. Is there anybody here that's opposed to the application and would like to speak? All right, I'm gonna close the public comments then. Does Alderman have any questions, or is that a motion?
I'll make a motion to go forward and approve this.
All right, I got Dickerson making the motion, Hamilton seconded it, right? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, Planning Commission, new business. 1A, set a public hearing for consideration application, project tech amendment for the development of Old River Farm. And this is just setting a public hearing. If anybody has a question, if not, is there a motion to set the public hearing for November 21st? Wallace makes a motion. Second by Henderson. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The next thing is consideration application for preliminary plat for Egg Creek Commercial Development Subdivision, phases 3 and 4.
Before you is a request to consider the preliminary plat for phases 3 and 4 of the Hickory Commercial Plant Development. The Board of Aldermen did approve the final plat for phase 2 of this particular subdivision at your last meeting last month. When the project text and the PD plan was approved, this was a general layout of the site as it was approved in the project text. Since then, the applicant, and there was a provision in the project text that the applicant could reach out to MDOT, and if MDOT approved additional streets extending from this side onto Goodman Road, then the applicant could construct those streets. That was done last year, and MDOT approved 2 additional roads to be extended from what is now James Herbert Drive running east to west onto Goodman Road. The application before you is essentially to approve or to consider the preliminary plat for phases 3 and phase 4. Phase 3 will consist of 5 lots labeled here in yellow, and phase 4 will consist of 3 lots and 1 common open space. In phase 3, there will be the extension of James Herbert Drive further to the west, but not up to South Hamilton Circle. That will be fully extended in phase 4. When the project text was approved, this subdivision was envisioned to be developed in 3 phases, not in 4 phases. For financial constraint reasons, the applicant now proposes to develop the subdivision in 4 phases as opposed to 3. Essentially, what he is doing is, as he develops phase 1, he gets money from there, uses it to build phase 2. then gets money from phase 2, uses it to build phase 3, and so on right up to the completion of the project. This is the preliminary plat laid out as currently proposed. All streets will be constructed with curb, gutter, sidewalks as they were approved in the project text. None of the lots adjoining Goodman Road will have direct driveway access onto Goodman Road. They will all share a cross-access easement running east to west on the side. So phase 3, lot 2, for example, will not have a direct driveway onto Goodman Road. Anybody using that side will have to come up to this cross-access easement, get on this street B, and then onto Goodman Road. All the other lots proposed to the south will have access from James Herbert Drive onto Street B or C or South Hamilton Circle, and then to the stoplight at this particular intersection. The Planning Commission did review this application at its meeting on October 10 and unanimously recommended approval subject to 6 conditions. Condition number 2 is worth pointing out, because in the project text, improvements on South Hamilton Circle were not addressed. This particular condition number 2 addresses those improvements, namely that to facilitate the queuing and the safe turn movements of vehicles on South Hamilton Circle into and out of this PD, the developer shall improve this road within the frontage of the property with through lanes, a middle turn lane, right turn lane onto Goodman Road, and a deceleration lane from South Hamilton Circle onto James Herbert Drive. The cross-section design detail shall be reviewed by the city engineer and brought before in the approval of the construction plans. The final plat shall include the dedication to the city of sufficient right-of-way for these street improvements. So this condition essentially empowered the city engineer to require improvements within that particular intersection to provide for the safe turn movement of cars in and out of this subdivision. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Good. Any questions from the board on this? If it's not, is the representative here? Okay. Is there any discussion before the board? Make a motion? Or
Motion to approve
motion
application.
to Alderman Hamilton to approve?
Second.
Second by Alderman Earhart. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next thing is application for final plat for the neighborhood at Bell Point, Section B.
Yes, sir. This is an application submitted by Mr. Lauderdale on behalf of the property owner, Witten Ayers, and show you the subject property on this slide. It's just under 24 acres in size. And again, this is an application for a 24-lot subdivision, Section B of the neighborhood at Bell Point. Our subject property is located approximately 1 mile to the west of Pleasant Hill Road. And this is Church Road. It's on the north side of Church Road. Section A is the one that is right underneath the one that we're talking about now. Just a little bit of history on the property. The neighborhood at Bell Point Planned Unit Development Master Plan was approved back in 2004, and the preliminary plat for both sections, A and B, was approved on 1/19 of 2021, and the final plat for Section A was approved later that year in September of 21, and it was recorded in October of 2021. And what Section B does is that it will complete the segment of Malone Road that will connect basically Church Road all the way up to Nail and beyond. And also as part of this application, you may recall in Section A we had one traffic circle, and in this section we have a second traffic circle at this current intersection of Winter Point Drive and Malone Road, and those two traffic circles are intended to make sure that this road, even though it now connects and is a collector road, we want to make sure it doesn't carry traffic like something like Pleasant Hill Road would do. So those two traffic circles are calming devices through there. This shows you Section A that's currently on the ground, and you can see the homes were already built out in Section A, and then Section B is to the north of it. So this plat is for Section B, and it connects right up here at that line. A couple things to note about this. You may recall this is the beginning of our city's trail network on the western part of the city. You can see through Section A we have an 8-foot wide concrete trail that runs along the east side of the Malone Road extension. There's the traffic circle located there, and that is proposed to continue through Section B. And you can see that on the green line that's located along the east side of the Malone Road extension, and that trail's 8 foot wide, and that'll be built like a sidewalk would, as every one of the houses is built in that subdivision. And then when we get to the north part of the subdivision, we do have a cross access. There's a 40-foot wide buffer that was required between this subdivision and the subdivision to the north as part of the original PD. And as part of that, we have an easement shown on the plat that's for landscape preservation and also to allow that trail to eventually be extended eastward and run across the northern boundary and through that buffer as it develops farther to the east. One thing I would note on what we have here too is as you go to the east, our whole roadway cross-section is going to change. Everything over here in the neighborhood at Bell Point, all the way over to our South Haven boundary is all open swale, and there's no sidewalks out there. So as we've moved to the east through the neighborhood at Bell Point, you can see on that drawing you have a sidewalk, curb, and gutter that sets up right there, and the sidewalks were built, again, with the houses were built, and so they actually connect right into the trail. So from any neighborhood over on this location to the east, you'll be able to eventually connect with sidewalks in and have a contiguous network to walk in. So you have on these two roads that are connecting, and then Section B to the north, we have that same setup where these roads are being done with curb and gutter as opposed to open swale. And so again, those, when the houses are built on these lots, they'll have sidewalks on them and trails in front. So again, in anticipation of this developing in a more urban manner as we move to the east toward Pleasant Hill Road. One of the main issues as this worked its way through the Planning Commission, and this was continued at 2 consecutive Planning Commission meetings, namely because we had some issues with the original design of the subdivision and stormwater drainage. And this shows you an example of what was originally proposed, where you had a stormwater retention pond that you can see the outline of it that extended over top of a 40-foot drainage easement, and it basically cut across lots. So the example that we used for the Planning Commission as to why something like this wouldn't work is that if you were the owner of Lot 25, and let's say you had a fence, let's say Lot 23 was fenced off here, the only way to get to the back of your property to mow the grass and all of that would either be to take a boat across, or you'd have to trespass across your neighbor's yard to be able to circle around the easement. We had that situation in 2 parts of the subdivision. This is farther to the south in Section B, and what the blue line represents were the proposed easements, and you can see how the subdivision was intended to cross the boundary of the retention pond and splice those retention facilities. So in the design that was approved, those conditions were eliminated, and what you can see here in these checkered areas are the redesign, reconfiguration of the common open spaces for the retention ponds. They're no longer part of the lots, and then they both have access through these panhandle shapes to be able to get to the road. So if somebody was, the homeowners association in this case will be in charge of them, so you'll be able to go with, pull up along the road and then use lawn mower equipment to be able to reach on and around to service those retention facilities. And let's go back to this. If you take note of this shape, you'll see that was originally here. So what happened when the redesign took place is that 2 lots went down to 1 lot. So the overall amount of yield on this particular subdivision went from 25 lots in the preliminary plat now down to 24 lots. And then, as part of these retention ponds too, our city engineer has required some new drainage facilities that would be constructed as well, that would be required as part of this final plat process. As far as the remaining 24 lots, now that we have them reduced, they all meet or exceed the 30,000 square foot minimum size. It's about 3/4 of an acre and the 125 width requirement, and those are both established in our PUD project text. And the setbacks are 50 feet along Malone Road, and we have a 35-foot setback along both Summer Point and Winter Point drives for the homes. I believe we did a PD amendment that requires those homes to be a minimum of 2,750 living square feet. We do have side setbacks of 10 feet for the homes, but it has to be a minimum of 30, so if one side's 10, the other side needs to be 20, and we have a 40-foot rear yard setback. Just a few other details about this. This shows the northern part of the subdivision. One thing I wanted to note with the trail, you'll see this is a plan that the applicant submitted while this was going through our planning process, and you'll see that the 8-foot wide trail is proposed and shown on the plan to go back up and connect to the cul-de-sac of existing Malone Road. You know, one thing we don't want to do with the trail system is just dead end it into the grass. So when this home is built, this trail will run along the right-of-way here, but it will also be extended to reach up to that cul-de-sac. So if somebody's riding a bike or walking, they won't have to get on the grass. They'll be able to have a continuous pathway. And down here at the, this is part of Section A, and this is one where it was cut off in the grass, and so we do have a condition of approval, even though we're on Section B, that basically says that when the first house is built in this Section B, that the developer's gonna have to come back here and make that connection to connect the sidewalk back to the pavement of Malone Road, because that was just something that wasn't properly completed in the first phase of the project. And also, this is our area that during construction, some of this area was cleared, so we had required, and then the 40-foot buffer, so you can see the outline in this plan of the future trail that will run through there. That wouldn't necessarily be built with the home, but be built later when this developed over in this area. But some of these plantings that are shown between the future trail area and the back of the lot, or back of the landscape easement on the back of the lot, I should say, would be required to be planted as a condition of plat approval. And then this shows you a plan, Planning Commission required for planting that traffic circle. And as of this past weekend, the applicant's already completed that work, so that has been planted. Planning Commission reviewed this item at its October 10th meeting, and by unanimous 6-0 margin did pass a motion recommending approval. At that time, the city engineer had submitted a memorandum dated October 4th that basically said that the applicant could not actually record this plat until such time all of that work was done on those drainage structures and those 2 retention ponds. Since that time, City Engineer Swims has met with Mr. Funderburk and the project engineer, Mr. Lauderdale, and come to a different determination. And the revised condition is shown in blue underlined text there, and basically what it says is they would have, they would cover the cost of doing those drainage structures within the letter of credit that Andy would collect, but he's going to get those done within 8 weeks of the time that the plat gets recorded. And so if he's not done within the 8 weeks, then what that condition says is that the city would not issue additional building permits. And Andy would be here to give you more expertise and be able to answer any questions about that revised condition. And then I'll point out number 2 as well. With regard to the traffic circle landscaping, it's already been done, and supplemental plantings would be required within the 40-foot wide north buffer area prior to occupancy of the first house in Section B. And in addition, that trail connection down by Church Road in Section A also needs to be done before a certificate of occupancy would be issued for the first home in section B. And the remaining conditions really deal with the road cross-sections that I talked about earlier and how we're going to curb and gutter sections over there on the east side of Malone Road, and then also deal with completion of the 8-foot wide trail as the homes are being built. That concludes the staff presentation. I can answer any questions you might have.
Okay, is there any question from the board, from planning?
I will have to say, I did drive out today, and I know the roundabouts are new things, but it looks really nice what's been installed. So Mr. Funderburk, that part of the neighborhood looks nice. I like the lots are nice size. It really is a nice looking subdivision, so thank you for working with our city with that.
Any other comment from the board or questions? Applicant like to add anything? You don't have to add anything.
It ain't gonna be much.
No, I'm kidding.
My name's Lanny Funderburk, 1805 Hawthorne, Hernando. We've had a lot of discussions with the planning board and the engineering, and we have agreed to do anything that they have suggested. As far as the curb and gutter, that's already been installed, along with sidewalks on those particular lots. And then I contacted, day before yesterday, an individual to extend that part of the sidewalk that was left out. And the materials for those two water structures, they're on order, and it looks like we'll get them within two to 3 weeks is what she told me. She sent me a text. And so through numerous discussions, we're going to do what we say we're going to do. I appreciate the board, and I appreciate Andy and them working with us on it. It has been at times we've had some struggles, but I think we've come up with something that will satisfy the planning and the engineering as well as the board. And so I appreciate it, and thank you.
It's been a good looking development.
Yes, it is.
But any questions or comments, or is there a motion to approve with the addendum that they've changed, a little bit on one?
I'd like to make a motion to approve with the understanding that Mr. Swims has given us tonight, the updated information on the risers.
Okay. Alderman Hamilton makes the motion. Is there a second? Second by Alderman Henderson. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, next thing is consideration application for final plat for Scope subdivision, Focal Point Investments.
Yes, sir. Our subject property for this application for the one lot is 6.26 acres in size. And this was part of a subject property just under 16 acres located on the northwest side of Old Craft Road and the southwest side of Highway 78, and it was rezoned from C2 to AR, from C2 and AR to M1 Light Industrial back in September of 2021. And you may recall we had a preliminary plat application on this same 16-acre piece of property to divide it into 3 industrial lots that you approved at last month's meeting on September 19th. And so what we have tonight is a follow-up to that preliminary plat application, and this just includes the first of the 3 lots, or phase 1 of this project to plat the one lot. And this lot, I'll point out, is located along Highway 178. It has 374 feet of frontage along that line, and that comes down to a point it really has no frontage on Old Craft Road. So you may recall discussing this last month, and we talked a lot about Old Craft Road and all of the improvements that would be necessary on Old Craft Road. That's not really part of this application because this property doesn't really have any frontage on there. And when we get to the future phases, we'll be back on Old Craft Road. But this one, again, is just one of the 3 lots that you approved in their preliminary form last month. As far as our M1 zoning district, we don't have any type of minimum lot size or lot width requirement. We have setbacks that would be 50 feet from the front, 10 feet from the side, and 20 feet from the rear. Now, the applicant has submitted a final civil site and landscape plan, and what it does is it's proposing, it's shown in the picture, it's proposing to construct a 12,600 square foot shop and a 3,600 square foot wash bay for an equipment storage yard. And so those plans are currently under review in the planning and engineering departments. A couple of requirements that are applicable at M1: you can cover up to 80% of the area within areas that are impervious to water, such as rooftop or paved areas. The plan does have a stormwater detention pond included right there. We do have a revision of the plan set that was resubmitted last week that does include a sidewalk along the front, along Highway 178. Although there aren't too many sidewalks in the area, we do have plans already approved for a convenience store farther up the road at MWC Road that were approved a couple years ago, so that does have a sidewalk, and so this does make sense to have sidewalk in this area. The city does have a paving requirement, and this plan has been revised to include paved areas. This is all concrete area through here with the parking, and they do have some areas for gravel parking that are located here and in the front, and those areas would be reserved only for equipment that's heavy equipment that's not on wheels but on tracks. So those areas are just for track storage, not for anything that would be on wheels. The plans also show utility connections, water sewer line, the water line connects down here on Old Craft Road. There's a utility easement through there, and there's a sewer line existing on Highway 178. And presumably this is going to be a metal building, so that's something that will require a review of our city's Design Review Advisory Commission because of the use of metal as a primary element. This shows you some views of the subject property. This is from across the street on Highway 178, kind of looking in the westerly direction, and you can see the current edge of the current building here that's currently developed. And then number 2 is a shot straight across showing the frontage of the property. You see some overhead power lines there, so we're checking to make sure that with the landscape plan that's been submitted that we won't have a conflict between those power lines and the trees that are proposed to be planted. And then shot number 3 is from the back side of the property. This is MWC Road, and as I mentioned earlier, there's a convenience store that's been approved on this property right here, so you can see it would make some sense to have sidewalk connecting down, and there's sidewalks also along that road as well. The Planning Commission reviewed this item at its meeting of October 10th, and by unanimous 6-0 margin did pass a motion recommending approval subject to the 3 conditions as noted. That concludes the staff presentation.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the Alderman? Planning? Is anyone here to represent it? Any discussion between the Alderman or a motion, one way or the other?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Alderman Earhart makes a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Dickerson. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 5. Application for final plat for Moneypenny, Lot 2, 2-lot minor subdivision submitted by Robin Moneypenny, property owner.
Yes, sir. Again, this is a final plat application, and our subject property for the application is 9.5 acres, and we're located on the south side of Dunn Lane, about 1/3 of a mile to the east of its intersection with Craft Road. This property was part of the 2021 annexation, and the property is currently unplatted, and it's owned by John and Robin Moneypenny, and the subdivision was renamed from the Morgan subdivision, which you may have seen that noted on your agenda, to the Moneypenny two-lot subdivision. The property is currently developed with a 1,900 square foot home that was built in 1990, and then it also has a 2,100 square foot garage that was added back in 1996 according to records, and the proposal is to subdivide the property into two lots. Lot 1, 4.66 acres, would contain the current improvements, and then Lot 2 at 4.89 acres would be sold prospectively for a new home to be built on that property. Both of the lots exceed the minimum requirements of the AR zoning district. They're both over 1 acre in size, and they're both well in excess of 110 feet minimum width that's required at the 50-foot front setback line. This shows you a picture of the actual subdivision plat out here on Dunn Lane. It's a rural section of road with open swale. It's got no type of curb, gutter, or sidewalk, and that's not a requirement in our AR zoning district. We do have water and gas currently available out on Dunn Lane. The sewage has not yet been extended to that area, so if the new house were built on Lot 2 in advance of there being city sewer available, it would need to have a septic system that would be installed there, and there's been a plat note to address that. And also, there's a requirement to pave the existing driveway as well as the new driveway for Lot 2. And this shows you some pictures out there from Dunn Lane. Again, you can see our rural section, open swale, no curb, gutter, or sidewalk, and then you can see where this is the Lot 2 driveway that'll have to be paved, and then this is the Lot 1 existing driveway that also would need to be paved. And the Planning Commission did review this at its October 10th meeting, and by unanimous 6-0 margin did pass a motion recommending approval, subject to the conditions as noted. I've stricken conditions 2, 3, and 6 because they've already been addressed on the plat that you have before you tonight. Number 7 involves making sure that the plat note that's added also includes the paving for the existing driveway that's currently serving lot number 1 as well as the driveway for lot number 2. That concludes the staff presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Anyone here to represent it? Thank you. Come forward. After you get through, it's right behind you on that table, fill out that and give it to the, her
Okay.
or wherever, so
Sure
we can
will.
keep a record.
Good evening. Robin Moneypenny, 7235 Dunn Lane. I don't really have a lot to add. They've done a great job representing. I just wanted to represent in case there were any questions. If not, I appreciate your time and consideration.
Okay.
And we are
thank you.
planning to build. I just want to note that. We're going to actually build on that lot too. So, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Any questions from the board? Is there, thank you. Motion by Alderman Wallace to approve. Is there a second? Second by Alderman Aldridge. Is there any question? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Application for final plat for Dempsey Construction Company, submitted by Otis and Summer Dempsey.
Yes, sir, and this is another subdivision of one lot for 0.65 acres. This is a Google aerial view, and we're sitting here in our municipal courthouse right about here, about 900 feet as the crow flies is the corner of Old Highway 178 and Blocker. There's an existing home there, and the applicants, Dempsey's, are attempting to plat this because they want to move their construction office into that building and rehab the home. So what we have is an application for the one lot subdivision within the C2 Highway Commercial Zoning District, And then before the property is reused for commercial purposes, the driveway and parking area must be paved to meet the fire access code provisions, and this was included in your packet and also on your PowerPoint here that shows how those parking spaces would be added, including the handicap space, and this still has to be reviewed by our fire and engineering departments to make sure that those turn radius work in that project. This just shows you a picture of the existing home. It's 2439 square feet according to tax records, and again, this would be for the new construction office. This is the view from Highway 178, and then this existing drive area would be upgraded along Blocker Street. This just shows you a depiction of the subdivision plat showing the 0.65 acres. Our planning commission reviewed this item at its October 10th meeting and is recommending approval by unanimous margin, subject to the conditions as noted. Number one just deals with making sure that the driveway parking area is approved through the city fire and engineering department, and just some other minor amendments that need to be made to the plat drawing. And that concludes staff presentation. Can answer any questions you might have.
I got a question. When they're gonna turn it into a commercial, are they required to update the house to meet like ADA and different
Yes.
things?
Yes, sir. They'll have to get a building permit to do some interior renovations as well, mainly like handicap accessibility, like the restrooms. I think Alderman Earhart went through that with his building out on Old Goodman Road.
Yes, we
as an
did.
example. Could be a little more expensive than maybe you think it might be when you get into it, but I'm sure they'll do a good job with it. I think the Dempseys are excited to be in the rehabbing this old house, and it's one I think worth saving. You know, it's a nice looking house, and it's one I'm glad to see it put to reuse as opposed to seeing it get demolished.
It already looks 100% better because of what they've done. They've already put new windows in there. It looks really nice.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, is there any question from the board? I know everybody, most of us, older one, people here, this is one of the older houses in the town, Dr. Funderburk's house. You know, one of the older doctors that was ever in the town. So I'm glad the building's being saved instead of bulldozed, and, so, but it looks like a nice plan and stuff, but that's just my comments. Any other questions from the board?
Because, Mr. Gimmo, and I didn't take a chance to look at the zoning aspect, but I'm sure just pure office use is okay in C2. It doesn't need to be rezoned for office or
No, sir.
district?
C2 allows for office
For-
uses.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing in there, and there was a minor error in your staff report that it pointed out, and I assume this property was rezoned C2 after the house was already built, but the house as it currently sits doesn't meet the C2 setbacks, which are 50 feet, so basically you have what would be called an existing non-conforming situation. And if in the event they did want to expand and they wanted to build into that setback area, then you would have to go through a variance procedure. But as far as the building that's existing there, it does sit a little bit into the setbacks.
Okay.
Any other questions? Comments? There a motion to approve? Alderman Henderson makes a motion, Wallace seconds it. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, we're gonna set up, this one has not been. Is it A?
Mr. Gambona, the recommendation is that this lot owned by Carpenter on Maple Grove has been adequately cleaned?
Yes, sir.
So
Okay.
is it any action?
No action, if the board agrees, no action is required.
Okay. No action on option on 7. And the next one is consideration action on motion to determine the actual cost and cleaning of the following property to determine whether excessive penalty or not. These are all the ones we've approved all the way through the year. That's why it's a big, long list. And this will be, if we approve it, will be turned into the tax collector to be assessed, you know, after the first of the year. So that's why this is such a long list. But these are the ones that we've cleaned through the year. Correct?
That's absolutely correct, Alderman Collins. And so the list is, lists the actual cost of cleaning, which must be collected, then it lists the standard penalty that the board has historically imposed, which for grass cutting has been $250 for a first cutting and $500 for second and subsequent cuttings. You'll notice on the last page of your staff report, there's a list of lots owned by the state of Mississippi. These are lots that would have rolled to the state after non-payment of taxes for a period of time, and state law allows us to collect our actual cost, in fact requires us to collect actual cost, but you cannot impose a penalty against state-owned property. So those are placed on a separate list, separate and apart from the privately owned lots for which penalties and actual costs are recommended for assessment. And this list is consistent, I think, in size and manner with what we've done in prior years. Each year in about October, we present this to the board so that it can be added to the collection of 2023 taxes.
So this is from January to end of September?
Mr. Gambone, there may actually be some that would be late 22 that were cleaned in 22 after this was done last year, but probably not many because the grass is not growing a whole lot during that period of the year. So primarily, actually, I do see a couple that are 22, but this would be everything that the board declared a menace and that was cut after you approved the similar list last year in October.
We only submit one a year to Joey,
Right.
and that's all he wants, so can't, if you have any toward the end of the year here, it would roll to the next year.
I see a few of them in there for
Yeah.
Mr. Dye, I'm just curious on this Brian Salisbury, because that's a large amount, and due to the circumstances, I don't know that we'll ever collect that. We might, but typically what happens in that case? Does the city put a lien on that, or how does that?
We can. We'll turn it in under the tax collection process, and then under state law, you can also record a lien in the circuit court judgment roll book.
Okay.
And if the property were to sell, there is a chance, it's not guaranteed, but there's a process by which that would be picked up in a title search and potentially collect. But
That's a rather unusual and large amount.
that is, and it was not just typical grass cutting on that one, there was some other more extensive work that was done. The one thing I would note is that the board does not have discretion with regard to the actual cost. The actual cost that's listed on these, the board has to assess or collect in some manner, or it would be an impermissible donation. So the actual cost column, there is no discretion. That needs to be approved by the board. The penalties are, of course, within the board's judgment.
We've got one other one that's got 10,000.
That's correct. They're both highlighted. The large dollar
Yeah.
amounts are highlighted. And as we've noted before with some of these, although collection at times on those can be difficult and problematic legally, when the board declares these properties a menace, it's essentially saying that the public interest in having the property cleaned outweighs any risk that we may have in not being able to actually collect the money, that you're determining that public interest in cleaning it was worth moving forward. And then we'll make best efforts to collect, understanding that a percentage of this total may not be actually collected during the course of the tax collection process or the lien process.
What about the ones we've been doing here?
Some of those will wind up going onto the back page and become state-owned, and then they'll still stay on there. Then hopefully, the state has a process for disposing of surplus tax forfeited property as well. Hopefully, eventually, some of those properties would be bought by a individual or company that would put it to beneficial use and take care of it.
Some of these are like retention ponds that come in open spaces in homeowner associations that don't have any active
That's right.
and, they messed up.
Didn't know what they were buying.
Right, and some people buy multiple properties at a tax sale, some of which are not buildable because it may be a detention area, and they may not realize at the time of the purchase and don't maintain the lot.
Would they pay the,
They'll be assessed the cost and penalty on the 2023 taxes.
okay.
And if those taxes aren't paid, they'd roll to the tax sale as well.
Well, and that, we would collect that also.
You would collect it, these would be collected January, February, and if not, collected in an August tax sale
Okay.
in the course of 2024.
The Salisbury place, is that the one that had all the trees down at the back of the?
Yeah.
Correct.
Blocking the creek up and stuff?
Yeah.
And several neighbors came out, saying it's causing mosquitoes and,
Would-
is it that area?
It is.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to collect these costs.
Dickerson makes a motion to collect them. Is second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Earhart. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And that, no, the next thing is new business. Consideration recommendation to approve East Area Projects 1 and 2. Tax order number 2, Neil Schaefer.
Yes, sir, this is a continuation of our efforts to extend water and sewer into the annexation areas, and just a little update, we're moving aggressive. We've got a very aggressive schedule trying to stay on with what the requirements are for us. This is task order number 2 for the east area of the county, of the city. Projects number 1 and 2, where maps and deeds are trying to be created as a part of this task order. So Neil Schaefer is the one that's doing most of the work, and we coordinate quite a bit with our attorney, engineering, our consultants, and so forth to try to make these move forward. So this task order is in the amount of $46,170, and we recommend the approval.
So we need a motion to approve these services,
Yes, sir.
correct? Is there a motion to approve this agreement with Neil Schaefer? Dickerson makes the motion, the second. Second by Alderman Wallace. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And that concludes. We'll go to executive session. Will there be a motion to consider going into executive session to discuss personnel matters in the airport department, in the ambulance department, in the fire department, gas maintenance department, park department, police department, sanitation department, street department? That cover all of our departments? All right, Alderman Henderson makes a motion. There's a second by Alderman Aldridge. All in favor, say aye. Is there a motion to go into executive session to discuss these matters? Alderman Hamilton makes a motion. Second by Alderman Henderson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're in executive session. Thank y'all.